Hey, we are going to talk about ACT limit setting. And the reason why I think ACT limit setting is important and why it's in this grief Kickstarter is as parents, we struggle with how do we discipline? When do we discipline? Is it a grief behavior? Is it not? And parent guilt is a real thing. And so we're going to tend to err on the side of caution, and we're not going to discipline our kids because we're worried the reason why they're acting out or acting up is because of their grief layer. And so what I love about ACT limit setting is even if we don't know the reason, even if we don't know if it's they're just being a typical 4-year-old or a typical 10-year-old and having these behaviors, or if it is a grief thing, the limit setting is the same. And the reason why it works is it was developed by a play therapist by the name of Dr. Garry Landreth, and I studied under him at the University of North Texas. And the ACT limit setting came out of his own parenting, but also from the mental health perspective, he used it in play therapy. So setting therapeutic limits with children he worked with. And the limit setting works because it helps them identify their own feelings. It then communicates a very clear, matter-of-fact limit, and then it gives them at least two choices of preferable behaviors or things they can do instead of what they were just doing. And so I'm just going to give you a quick overview on it. We'll talk more about it in the mastermind, but I wanted you to have a jump start because this may be a different way of thinking. I have been using ACT limit setting not only in my own parenting with my 4 kids, but also in the counseling arena for over 20 years. And so I am a big believer if this is your primary way of setting limits in your household, it's going to change the entire environment in your household for the better. So, what is ACT limit setting? And to start with, we're going to break it down into the 3 steps. So, ACT, ACT. The A stands for acknowledge. We're going to acknowledge the child's feelings, and we're going to do that with our own empathy and understanding. We're using our tone of voice. So we are saying all these things through our tone of voice. So it may be something as simple as, I know you don't want to do that, or I know you're sad right now. Again, we're just in very few words saying what we are seeing in our child. We're either saying the feeling out loud, or we're talking about what they don't want to do. And even though that's kind of on the edge of, is that a feeling or not a feeling? It is a feeling because they don't want to do it. Or maybe it's something they do want to do. Like, I know you want to jump on the couch right now. What the next piece is we're communicating the limit. So we're very clear, we're very specific, we're very concise. So the fewer the words, the better. So it may be something like, I know you want to jump on the couch right now, but the couch is not for jumping on. So I'm very clear. The couch is not for jumping on. It's not, I don't want you to jump on the couch. The couch is not for jumping on. So there's no misinterpretation there. There's no trying to go around the rules. The rule is very matter of fact. This is not for this. So ice cream is not for breakfast. Holding, or maybe it's something like, you may not eat in the living room. Food's not for in the living room. Again, very clear, concise. There's no interpretation, no wiggle room. When we're talking about the T in ACT, we're going to target acceptable behaviors. So we are going to give them 2 options, and only 2, not 10, 2 options of something they can do instead, where they get to choose. And the options that I present to them, I am going to make sure I'm okay with it. As the parent, I'm not going to give them an option that I'm really like, oh, but don't pick that one. It's going to be 2 things that are acceptable in my household. So if we go back to the jumping on the couch, I know you really want to jump on the couch, but the couch is not for jumping on. You can choose to jump on the floor, or you can choose to go jump on the trampoline. So the floor or the trampoline are the choices, but the very clear rule is the couch is not for jumping on. The other part of choices is we want to give 2 options that our child would actually choose. So we're not going to say something like, I know you really want a cookie for breakfast, but cookies are not breakfast food. You can choose cereal or you can choose a spanking. That's not really a choice, because most kids are going to feel like they only had one choice, and the one choice was cereal. Your other kids, who are going to be more of your rebel personality or the ones who like to challenge you, are going to say spanking. And now you're in the position of, do I spank? Do I want to spank? Is this a spanking thing? So now you've just added more stress, more chaos to the thought process. So I would highly encourage you to never give spanking or some sort of punishment as the choice, because that's not really a choice. It would be better for you to just say, this is not an option, this is the option, instead of giving one thing that's an option and another that is something that's more associated as a punishment. The other big thing is using the word choice or choose. And when we use the word choice or choose, we're putting the responsibility back on our child. Now our child knows, I get to choose. I get to decide. I have some ownership, some responsibility, and you believe I'm capable to make that choice. So that can be really empowering. So when you say and give those 2 target alternatives, you can choose blank or blank, but we're using the word choose or choice every time. If we don't use the word choose, then it leaves it up for some miscommunication and for them to not understand, do I get to choose? Are you choosing this for me? So we're making it very clear, I'm returning the responsibility to you. You get to choose. The couch is not an option. The couch is not for jumping on. You can choose this or this. The other part is, punishment is not a choice or an option, just like we were talking about when we were targeting those alternatives. We don't want to use punishment. So it's not, you can choose to sit at the table with your family or you can choose to sit by yourself. That can be more of a punishment. Now, are there some times where the option is they're not keeping their hands to themselves? So I know you really want to put your hands on your sister, but your sister's not for touching right now. Do you choose to keep your hands in your lap, or do you choose to sit by yourself? That is different, because I am presenting 2 choices. I'm letting them decide, are you capable of sitting there with your hands in your lap, or do you need this space, this distance, to be able to keep yourself under control? That's not a punishment. Punishment is sending them away, or like I mentioned with the spanking or a timeout. Like those things are not truly an option. So that's where I would caution you there. The other thing that parents often ask me is, okay, I gave the choice, they didn't choose. Now what? It didn't work. I would encourage you, so you're going to give these 3 parts, you're going to say it 3 times, and giving enough time in between where you can let your child think about the decision. So, I know you really want to jump on the couch. The couch is not for jumping on. You can choose to jump on the floor or the trampoline. So I've said it once. I wait maybe 20, 30 seconds, which is going to feel like a lifetime, because as a parent, you're waiting for them to do their job, to make their choice. You've presented the option, you've returned responsibility and allowing them some control, but they're not deciding. Say it again, but don't change up the words. Say it exactly the way that you just did. So I know you really want to jump on the couch, but the couch is not for jumping on. You can choose to jump on the floor or you can choose to jump on the trampoline. Again, we wait. We give them an opportunity to see if they can pull themselves under control, if they can make the choice. And we say it a 3rd time. Again, exactly the same way we just did. I know you really want to jump on the couch, but the couch is not for jumping on. Do you choose to jump on the floor or do you choose to jump on the trampoline? And I'm not sure if you can see me in the picture, but I am pointing. So I am giving some nonverbal gestures. I'm showing them where the option is, where their choices are. And that's just a nonverbal cue of the couch is not an option, but the option is here or here. When we've said it 3 times and they are still not complying, I have a big statement for you, and it's one of those I would encourage you to memorize. And I've been saying it for 20 years, so it comes very easily and naturally. I don't even have to think about it. But my next statement would be, it seems like you're having a really hard time making a choice. If you choose not to choose, then you are choosing for me to choose for you. And I choose for you to jump on the floor. Again, I stuck with the same option. I say one of the 2 things that I gave. So I either could have said jumping on the floor or jumping on the trampoline. But if you will count in that sentence, I said choose or choice 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. 5 times. So 5 times I returned responsibility to them. I said, it is your choice. Because I didn't want to step in and decide for them. But when they chose not to decide, they chose for me to decide. And so again, we're not taking away responsibility. We're saying in their moment of not choosing, they did make a choice. So when we make this statement and we're, again, now deciding for them, most kids, because in that moment, they're like, oh, mom wasn't playing. She really is making me get off the couch and she is deciding for me. I don't want her to decide for me. Most kids immediately will run to whatever choice they really wanted because they don't want you to take away their choice, which is okay. As long as they're doing one of the things you asked, that's fine. It's not a time to engage in the next power struggle. We let that go. But by saying these very consistent words, using the 3 parts, the acknowledge the feeling, communicate the limit, target the alternative. By doing this every single time a scenario comes up where you need to set a limit, so it might be at the breakfast table, it might be at bedtime, it might be when you're walking out the door to an activity, it might be while you're at a restaurant. The more that you use and strengthen these three things as this is the way I speak, this is how I am handling consequences and behaviors and limit setting in my household, it will become very natural and easy, and you will be able to, on the spot, come up with some alternatives. If you're still new in it, I would encourage you to kind of write out what are the top 3 to 5 things in my household. Like, these are the common struggles every day that we seem to run into. Brainstorm some options. Brainstorm some ways, how will I handle this? When this behavior comes up, how am I going to deal with that? So let's say your child doesn't want to brush their teeth at bedtime. Oh, I know you don't want to brush your teeth, but now's time for brushing teeth. You can choose to do it before you put your pajamas on or after you put your pajamas on. So I still presented a choice, but the choice wasn't, do you want to brush your teeth? The choice was, do you want to do it before this or after this? Again, the more you do this, the more comfortable you'll become. And in our mastermind, if there are some specific either problem areas or specific behaviors that you're wanting to know how to apply the ACT limit setting on, bring those to the mastermind and let's talk about those. I also included on the side here a handout on ACT limits. So what I did in the handout was I went through and talked about what are the behaviors or motivation for our child? Why are they acting out? And I just briefly kind of picked some of the most common ones. And then I have a write out of the ACT limit breakdown so that you'll have all three of those pieces. And then I also gave you several behavior examples. So examples of things you might see commonly at home and how you can address them. And then I also included the statement right here that's on the screen about it seems like you're having a hard time choosing. That is on there so that you can practice and memorize that. And then just a couple of quick tips that I want to highlight, they are also written on your handout, is that pointing to the items, you can choose this or you can choose this, is helpful. It's a very nonverbal cue, but it's also a visual cue, especially for your younger kiddos. Consistency is key. That's going to make the difference between whether or not this limit setting is effective. And the limits are not punishments. You are presenting the limit. You're saying what's off limits, what's not okay, what the rule is for your household. But most of the time you won't need a discipline or a consequence to come with it because you will have already shifted their behavior to an acceptable behavior. So again, we're going to state it with a very calm, matter-of-fact tone of voice, and that's going to signal to our kids, Mom's talking different. She's not yelling. She's letting us know something is different. Something has changed. I need to listen because a choice is coming. The other part is when we use limits, we are setting up safety and security for our kids. And our kids, our grief kids, need safety and consistency. The worst thing has already happened in their life, and that safety and consistency is really important. And that's what's going to help them recover and heal from this grief, where the grief is just part of their story, not their whole story. And again, I mentioned several times about returning the responsibility. When it comes to limits, we are improving their self-control. We are returning responsibility to them. And so by letting them choose, it's easier for us to consistently enforce the rule, and they know what's coming. They know they have a say. And when we're talking about our grief kids, they already feel out of control. They feel like the world is spinning around and they are just this victim of the world, that they have no say. And so by using limit setting in this way, you're setting them up for success because they get to be in control of something. They get to be in control of what choice they choose. So the very last thing that I want to say, and again, we will talk more about this in the mastermind, so come with your questions written or examples or things that you would like to talk about. How do you apply this limit setting? But these consistent limits, again, provide that safe and predictable environment. And because of that safety and predictability, we are offering a sense of security. And our kids need to feel secure, because that safety and security is going to help them learn better in school. It's going to help them be emotionally in touch with their feelings. It's going to help them know how to express themselves in a healthy way. So again, we could use limit setting with anger. So if your child is expressing anger, it might be something like, I know you're really angry right now, but breaking toys is not okay. You can choose to go outside and throw a ball, or you can choose to tear up this magazine. We're giving two options, two ways for them to get that anger energy out that are acceptable and safe. So we're not allowing them to hurt themselves or hurt somebody else, but we're allowing them to get the energy out. And especially our young kids, they feel it, they say it, do it. They don't necessarily know what's okay and what's not okay. So this is your way of saying it's not okay to break things. It's not okay to throw things and destroy things. But we can get that energy out in this way that's acceptable in our household. I often use with my kids, following up with, in our house, that's not okay. Because the reality is, if there's a divorce situation, or if there are different parenting views, or as our kids get older and they go into their friend's house, they're going to pick up on what's okay at my house isn't okay at your house, or the other way around. And so this just helps them know that these limits are what works in your household. Limit setting is also a great thing that if you shared with your kids' teachers, that they could learn from that. This is a great way to not engage in the power struggle. And again, our grief kids are looking to be in control of something. So if we can diffuse the power struggle, we're going to be in a better path. So if you have questions, bring it to the mastermind, and I will see you later.